Hello, forward-looking financial planners and students who wish to become a financial planner. My name is Colin Overweg. I am the leader for the Next Gen Association, the Next Gen community in the state of Michigan. Although with that being said, we have participants and attendees, students, advisors from around the country. As a community, we get together every other month or 6 times per year, and our last event was really special. We were joined by Thomas Copelman, who is the co-founder of All Street Wealth. And he is absolutely crushing it as an advisor. He is growing his firm like crazy organically through social media. And as a group, we just dove in headfirst into all things financial planning and specifically how the heck he is growing so quickly as a firm. At one point in our conversation, I was literally forcing him to walk through every single social media and how he is using it and how he's able to repurpose content. If you are trying to figure out how to market yourself, grow a brand, maybe even start to discover a niche, I highly recommend that you check out this conversation. And if you want to get involved for our next event, which is going to be on Thursday, January 18th from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern Time, please just Google Michigan FPA. You'll land on this page. You can follow the Michigan FPA on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, or feel free to follow me on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. I'm all over the place. I hope to see you at our next event. And let's go ahead and get to the conversation. Because everyone's journey is so darn unique. Would love to hear how the heck you got into the financial planning arena, maybe even going back to college, and we'll kind of like zip through the intro, and then we'll probably spend most of our time double clicking on how the hell you grew your business so fast, what you're doing with marketing. I'll pick on myself with a lot of the things I'm probably doing terribly wrong. And I think we'll be able to get a bunch of roundtable questions from there.
Okay, cool. So college-wise, I went to college to play basketball at Minnesota State, got hurt, decided I was like burned out, didn't want to play, and I went to Butler in Indianapolis. And I did like 6 internships while I was in college. And I just didn't like any of them. Like it was all bigger company type stuff. And I just really, as an athlete, I like the feeling of like my work had impact, not like I pass it on to somebody else and then like you never really think about it again. And when I graduated, I had a few job offers. Basically, one of them was working at a broker dealer, and it was like the one that felt like maybe the best out of the options. It wasn't really something I was excited about, to be honest. Um, Started at the broker dealer, realized that I wanted to do financial planning, just not like that and how it was taught there. Like it was very much the, Project 100 start, like, who are the 100 people you're going to reach out to the day that you start. First week, we all go to like headquarters and you're supposed to call all 100 people, get as many meetings as you can.
Classic.
And yeah, and I remember coming back. It was probably like a month in. I had a wedding for my buddy. I was in the wedding, got back, and they were like, "How many leads do you have?" And I was like, "None." Like I was drinking with my buddies, having a great time. What do you mean? They're like, "No, like you should be coming away from every event with at least 10 to 15 leads." And I was like, "Yeah, okay, like that's just, not the way that I want to do this." Um, and I had a realization like probably a year in. I was like, everybody talks about how valuable financial planning is, and if financial planning is valuable, why am I selling it versus attracting people who want to work with me and want help? And I think at that point I was like, okay, well, how do I attract people? It's like probably social media. Like I don't think any better way than to like show what you know and show what you do and let that attract people who naturally need that kind of help. And so at that point I was like, all right, well, I need to go in on social media, but I was still at the broker dealer. We had like hearsay was how you would post, and they had like all the canned posts, or if you wanted to post what you wanted, it was like a 1 to 2 week process. And wouldn't really recommend it, but I was like, yeah, I'm just going to post. Like, what are they going to do? So I just stopped, getting things approved, and I would just post them. And then they'd be like, you'd be up for a week and they'd tell me to take it down. And so then I would take it down, and, I couldn't have a podcast. I couldn't have a blog. I couldn't be on Twitter. I couldn't really do any of the things that I wanted to do. And so I was like telling them, I was like, I'm going to leave, to be honest. Like, if you're not going to allow it, me the way to grow the way that I want to grow, then this just won't be the place for me. And their whole thing was like, oh, well, all of us had done it. Like we got clients. I was like, you're 50 in management now. Like you got clients before social media, without social media. Like, I don't know if that's really the comparison.
Right.
And they're also in management for a reason because they didn't really make it as a financial advisor. So they moved to management. And basically, I like told them, yeah, I'm going to leave. And so I put it out there for a long time that I wanted to get into the independent space. And luckily, I, um, I found a guy's website and I was like, everything his website speaks about is exactly what I wanted to be. It was really about like, you know, financial advisor meets friend, like sits at the table with you, like gets to talk to your kids. Like it's not buttoned up suit and tie. It's more of like, we have like a relationship that's about me helping you get to where you want to go. And I ran into him like at a conference randomly and I was like, love your website, man. I would love to like start to meet with you and kind of like get to hear your story and learn from you. And so he kind of became my mentor for a bit. And he connected me to the advisor growth community and Justin Castelli and some other really good people. And basically I begged Justin Castelli to hire me. I was like, dude, pay me $2,000 a month. Like I have these other job offers. I'll make six figures, but like that's not what I want to do. It's more corporate. I'm going to be a junior advisor. I'm not going to learn anything about marketing. And eventually he was like, fine, whatever. Like I'll let you join me. And so I worked with him for a while. And then about a year and a half in, he's like, yeah, like you got everything out of me you need. I think you should go start your own firm. And I was like, I don't want to start my own firm. Like that's just, that I don't want to be a business owner. And he's like, well, I'm a terrible manager. I like don't give you the time that you deserve. You're good. Like go start it. So I was like forced pretty much into starting it. And so I launched All Street like I think 25 months ago. And now we're in a really good spot.
Dang. That happened so quick. I mean, just to
Um,
think like where you're at today and all of the change which we're gonna be getting into. Um, that's an incredible story. Do you feel that like kind of one thing because we have a range of our audience of like I mentioned students to advisors, so trying to make sure that we kind of provide value in that onboarding that you went through. Um, how the heck did you have the confidence to like go out and start doing planning yourself? Because financial planning is different to everybody, let alone being confident enough to actually control the room, ask those difficult questions, provide valuable advice. And plus, just being young, did you have a lot of pushback working with people and maybe not having the gray hair that some prospects might be looking for?
yeah. Well, I've been creating on social media for like a year and a half or 2 years, like really consistently by the time I launched my own. And like I had Justin overlook like every financial plan I did. So I felt pretty confident in the financial planning for the type of clients I worked with then. The
Yeah.
clients I work with now are very different, a lot more complex, but I've never had problems with people not trusting me because of age, because everybody comes in to try to work with me from social. So like they vet me by the things that I talk about. And I think I talk about really complex, the mix of basic, but also really complex things that most advisors don't talk about or really even do planning around. And so when people come in, they're like, we know we want to work with you. We know you can solve our problem. What does that look like? And when's our start date? So it's a very different funnel than a referral or, hey, somehow they just came to me from Google. They know nothing about me. I got to figure out if he knows his stuff. So that's why I love social media is it's just, between a podcast, a newsletter, Twitter, YouTube, etc. Like you can figure out if I know my stuff or not. And it's not only the best way to showcase it, but it's also the best way to learn.
Such a great eventual on ramp here to another kind of unforeseen benefit of marketing because of course you're getting clients in the door, which if we're all trying to grow our practices is kind of the goal with marketing. But the cherry on top is getting a client that knows you, likes you, understands you. They're probably not going to you and then thrown off that you're not wearing a three-piece suit and sitting across them, in a mahogany table. Like they know how you operate, how you make your content. So they're probably like fired up and ready to go and meeting one.
Yeah. I mean, I think a big part of like creating content is being you and showing who you are and what you believe. And I think a lot of people do that incorrectly and they try to like write to other advisors and use big words and acronyms and things. And that doesn't really attract people. Like if our job is to simplify things, then like you should be able to do that through your message. And so when people come and sit down with me, like I have to fit the same brand that they've created in their mind or identity, which if you're not being yourself is really hard to keep between both sides.
Absolutely. So you leave Justin Castelli, uh, and you start the firm. You put the poster up or whatever. You fire up the website. What the heck happened next? Where do we start? How do you get that first client?
Well,
Where do
I
you?
brought all my clients with me. Like
Yeah,
Justin didn't make me keep any of the clients, but like my early on, like when my fees then, and this is what Justin's were was like 150 a month, 200 or 250 a month. So like
yeah,
it's not a lot of revenue, even with like 30 clients, right? It was like $4,000 a month. So it was like enough to cover expenses and enough to pay myself like a tiny bit, but nothing that I felt great about by any means. Um, and actually this ended up becoming the best thing because like if I would have stayed with Justin, I don't think I would have worked with the clients I work with because his fee structures and who he works with is more simple, and that wasn't the type of client he wanted to work with. But
yeah.
I mean, we started and social media was still going pretty well. I was still getting a good amount of prospects from social. And I think that first year, maybe I got to like 10K a month in revenue by the end of 2022, somewhere around there. But then this is years when things started to really take off. Like, so we went from 150 a month and 200 a month, 250 to eventually went to 250 to 350 to eventually 350 and 450 to eventually 450 and 600 to now we have 1,000 a month is our minimum model. And then we have probably 5 newer clients who are $1,500 a month. So our flat fees are 12 or 18K a year, just broken up monthly. So not really a subscription fee. Um, and we have like a 4 month long wait list at this point with a bunch of people on the calendar. So I think social media has created that. But we went like my client base went from like 11,000 a month in January to like I'm at like 33,000 in reoccurring a month, and we'll do 48,000 next month in revenue. So, and that's all from inbound from social media.
Okay. So something happened in between there. I'm thinking that if I just raised my fees to 12,000 a year, I don't think I'm going to automatically have a line out the door like you do. What happened there when we were increasing revenue? What was kind of that engine on the back end that created all this demand? Because what I'm sensing is that you just had enough demand that you could just start increasing your fees and not be terrified that you're never gonna get another client. So I'm getting
Yeah.
that feeling that demand really shoved these fees up. Am I right?
Yeah. We raised because we were getting no nos. And so I was like, if people aren't saying no, then our fees are way too low. And so
Okay.
then we were getting so busy, our wait list was getting long. So we raised them. And then people are still saying yes. And like, to be honest, most still say yes. So, but I just feel like our fees are fair where I don't want to like outprice people staying with you because the fees are too high, to be
Yeah.
honest. And so I don't really know what that is. I think we'll just keep figuring it out. Like I didn't think anybody would ever say yes to 12,000 a year, let alone like every person I've put 18,000 in front of has said yes. So I mean, I don't know. It's one of those things where it's hard to know, but the average person that we're working with is like 30s and 40s, bottom end, 500,000 of income. Many of them are making over 1.5 million in income a year. So like
Yeah.
they don't feel $1,000 a month coming out when their monthly expenses are 50K, right? Like to them, I mean, we're like the price of their cleaners, or we have people who paying 6 figures a year for private school for their kids, and so for them, it's a big value add, and also for like business owners in that space, the tax savings that you can have on them from tax planning is like 6 figures a year, where it's just not. They don't really think about it in that way.
So there's kind of a couple of things, like one, of course, clients coming in the door stayed constant. We're gonna have to spend some time on the social media, and some deep dives on that. But then the clientele shifted quite a bit here. So obviously, not everyone can afford, or it would even make sense. You could, some clients we just can't even provide enough value at
For
$1,000 a month.
sure.
Be better off saving. Um,
Yeah.
did you pivot 100% to business owners? You mentioned individuals with 500,000 income. Is that kind of like,
We do
yeah,
we do business owners or really highly compensated people with equity comp. because
Okay.
both of tax planning is like the biggest value add.
Yeah.
And like, we have a new client now, like he gets like $1 million a year in RSUs, right? And like that's a lot of planning that can be done
Hmm.
for people like that. We have a lot of people with tons of ISOs or NSOs or a mix of ISOs, NSOs, and RSUs, and both spouses work and have equity comp.
Sure.
Um, so we have the mix of the two. That's way easier than business owners just because there's so much happening for the business owners that are changing.
Yeah.
Uh, but it's totally just those two demographics.
I don't want to get into too much of the service model because everyone on this call has totally different service models. So we'll probably want to pivot over to just even creating your own voice and branding on social media here. But I do want to double click, at least for a moment there. Are you doing taxes in house? Is that something that, or how are you kind of handling the taxes when that seems to be a really high value add?
Yeah, so we just do all the tax planning for them in house. We do everything from what they're going to owe to the tax planning strategies that they should do to like, we're helping them map out QBI for the business owners and how much they should pay themselves in salary, whether they should be paying themselves more in salary, whether they should be focusing on profits because the formula and the equation changes based on their AGI.
Hmm.
And then for the equity comp people, I mean, we're making sure that we're aware of exercising in AMT and the taxes that are going to be owed and all that stuff. I think the tax planning is definitely, you can do the most with business owners. There's only so much you can do with W-2 people besides the equity comp side of things.
Hmm.
So that's why our big focus is those two groups of people. And we do have an EA in-house for, he just is like my planner and knows a lot about tax, which is really helpful. Um, so I feel like our tax knowledge is just really deep at this point.
Okay. So you're doing the tax planning and then we pass it off to the preparer to sign on the dotted line and actually file.
Yeah, what we found is most CPAs just don't do tax planning.
Yeah.
Um, that's just really, really common.
Yeah.
And so we just find good CPAs that just do filing and we just tell them what we're doing and they're like good and that we call it a day. And that way allows us to actually charge higher fees because people are used to paying financial planners fees, but less to paying CPAs like $6,000 or $10,000.
Awesome. Thank you. Darren, you want to chime in?
Yeah, what's up, Thomas? How's
I
it
mean,
going, man? Thanks
good.
for doing this. Hey, question here. So are you still working with Trayton and like from the Converting Attention Club? And I think one of the things that I've learned from you over time is like what you are laser focused on and then what you don't do, right? So maybe you could talk about like what it is like working with Trayton and then also, how you became so laser focused in the planning that you do for clients.
Yeah. So yeah, Trayton is still an owner of All Street, but he does a lot more website design and marketing stuff. So he doesn't do a lot of like working with clients. And to me, I don't care because basically I have my client revenue, I have my team, I get paid based on that. I pay out my team. He helps do like some of our website work and some branding work, keep our blog up to date and all that. But we are very like siloed in what we do. We just kind of do certain brand stuff together. And I just don't want to pressure him in any way to do anything that he doesn't want to do. So if he wants to do more marketing website stuff and that's more fun to him, by all means, you know, go ahead and do it. Um, I would say the laser focus side, I think that's something I just like learned from like sports of like, I was laser focused on basketball and becoming really good at basketball. And in that, you learn that all you can control is the actions. And if you do the actions enough, the results are going to come. And so for me, I just took the bet on myself that like, from my mind on social is that if I'm the most active and I'm like, if I'm putting out some of the best information, I'm going to get the reps to become better at it over time. And that if people see me the most, I'm going to be the advisor that they want to work with. Because we're in a sales industry. The average person, all they do is try to sell everybody. So one, I can stand out by never trying to sell anybody anything. And two, if they see me, hundreds of times, I'm never going to convince them to need a financial planner, but all I'm going to do is stay in front of them. So, hey, I got a new job. I have ISOs. Oh, I'm going to hit up Thomas because he's talked about these a bunch and I know he can help solve my problem. Like that's really my only goal through social. And I think too many advisors think they're going to write this amazing tax post and all of a sudden they're going to get a bunch of clients from it. And they're just not. Like, very few people can put out a few things and get clients from it. Like at this point, I've probably put out like 20,000 tweets, right? Or like I've written 250 blog posts, or I put out 130 podcasts. And then I cut those into videos and all those things that, like, at the end of the day, that number of reps, it's pretty hard to fail because you're going to suck early on and everybody does, even though they think they're going to be good at it, but you're just not. It's not natural. That once you get those reps in, eventually that you're going to get there. But like I just spoke about this at the Altruist conference and I was like, the statistics show that like 20% of your audience sees every post you do, right? So let's say you do 5 posts a week. That means your audience sees 1 post of you a week. And let's say half of your posts are educational, right? Other posts you're talking about life, et cetera. So that means they see 1 post every 2 weeks. So that means 2 posts a month. Maybe one of them didn't apply to them at all, right? So they saw one thing that from you that applied to them somewhat a month. That means 12 times a year you got in front of somebody with some small piece of information. Like that's probably not going to win you clients. So you need to first like be more active and more educational to be in front of people. So that way, when they need you, that you're the person they think of, right? Like that's the way that you win is if when they need help, your name doesn't come to their mind, then that means like you didn't do a good enough job with your social media and your branding.
I feel like I'm going to try to get so tactical in the rest of the call. And you probably just gave the golden nugget of there is no perfect answer. It's just do the work. I just wrote down in the chat, if you do that many reps, you're not going to fail. And it seems like that really is what it's about, is just consistency, quantity, and probably even messaging, making sure that you're staying reasonably on topic, like you're talking to business owners and you're just cranking out a ton of business owner related topics. And then lo and behold, you have a business with a line out the door with a bunch of business owners. I almost feel like it's kind of like the analogy of like clients being like, I invested today. Why am I not rich? And it's like, no, you got to invest every single month, automating it and making sure that you're building wealth. Like saving is what gets you rich, not the stock market performance necessarily.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. I think it just does take time. I mean, think about nobody knew how to do a financial plan for their first client. And like, I think about our financial plans are 100 times better now that we've done 200 of them for different people over the last few years compared to the first one. It's the same thing with like the content I create. Like if I went back to the first year of the content I created, it was terrible compared to what I do now. And I spend a tenth of the time doing it. Right. So like not only do I become better at it, but I became more efficient at it, which then allowed me to do more and more over time.
Such a great point. We'll probably have to loop back to that. Andrew, did you have a question? Would love for you to chime in.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, thank you for educating me on the fact that Minnesota State is not just a Hollywood construct. I did not know a real, actual university existed. So, the second, my question is like, how do you or where do you draw the line between advising individuals versus, getting into advising on their business since you advise business owners? Like, how do you view that?
I think it's kind of like different for everybody. I think everybody, we do the core financial planning, but I have clients where like I'm consulting them on like right now I'm going to be with a client on Monday about like, is he ready to hire? Can he hire? What is he going to
Right.
pay them? Should he move to S Corp next year or not? I have other
Right.
people I'm really helping them figure out like, how do we reduce your expenses in your business because your profit margin is way too low. And then we have other people that we're helping them plan on the sale of the business and all of the estate planning stuff that comes along with it. So I think like that's part of the reason why we charge such high fees is because we go so deep. Like we just delivered a plan for a client today that we spent 50 hours on between our team. He's a lawyer. He makes like $1.7 million, has lines of credit, tons of his like the analysis that was needed to get him a really good plan was just so deep. And that's honestly a big reason we had to raise fees, or we were gonna have to do less deep work to make it work.
Right.
But
Right.
I don't think there's a perfect line. Like you'd have to say, like, I only
Okay.
work with business owners that are 5 years away from selling, or like I only
Right.
people who are just starting their business, for it to be completely the same things. But like then all of a sudden the next year the business isn't doing well. Like we worked with a guy who like 1 year their business did like 12 million. The next year they had a big problem. It did like 2, and then the next year did 24. Like that's just very different problems you're helping face. And
Right.
so like a big part of working with business owners is like just being available to meet with them whenever something pops up and help them face that challenge.
Right. Okay. I appreciate that insight.
Yeah, good question.
Dan, you had some comments. Do you want to chime in?
Yeah, Thomas, thanks for joining us. So when you were first putting out content, I'm going to use business owners as an example because that's a niche that I think is really compelling. And assuming you didn't have a lot of business owners you were working with already, where did you draw like inspiration from to put out content? Because I feel like if you're already working with them, like that generates a lot of thoughts in your head. So just curious early on for those of us who kind of have this paralysis by analysis, like how did you start kind of generating ideas early on?
Are you a business owner?
Uh, it's a good question. I work for a bigger firm now. I'm considering the solo job at some point.
Yeah, I feel like that's the easiest way is like you start educating people about the things that you do. I think it is somewhat hard, like a hard speech to be like, hey, I don't work with business owners yet, and I'm not a business owner. Let me help business owners. Like,
Sure.
because it's, you know, it's interesting to say, but like it's very different to go through the things as a business owner and like all the random challenges that you have, which, what I found is most of the people who are not or don't get that experience working with business owners from somebody else and learning it, their planning is it's not deep, right? Like
Okay.
they still talk about like, here's the business retirement account you set up, which is good, but like until you've ever had to like make the decision or like help tons of people, like should I be an S corp versus not? Should we be a C corp versus not? What is qualified business income deduction? How do I pay myself? Those are all just like you need a lot of reps of them. So I think
Okay.
your other way is like maybe you join a study group with people who are advisors with business owners and figure out a way to add value and learn from them. Because there's not very many financial advisors who do deep financial planning for business owners.
Okay.
It's a really hard space. It's really complex.
Sure.
And there's so many parts that move together that for me, it was about like, I was going through it myself. And then I started to work with really early on business owners. And then like it kind of scaled beyond that to learn more and more stuff. And then I just knew what advisors to go to when I was struggling on something with a client to figure out. And, that's where I think study groups become really helpful.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Rachel, that was probably an accurate comment that you had about being a personal CFO to businesses. Was there any additional comment or question you had behind that?
I think it's a fair point, but I think we are for early on businesses. Any business that has like 3 to 5 million in revenue and above needs a real CFO, and so we also help our clients hire out CFOs at the times that make sense to them and like find those people, which I think is really important. Like if somebody comes in, they have a $10 million business and no CFO, like they don't want to pay us for 10 hours a month of work. It would easily be 10 hours, if not 5 to 10 hours a week. And that would be really expensive. And we just don't necessarily want to do that. And that's why it's hard. We have some business owners that like they do 1 million in revenue. We have some that do 10. We have some that do 50, and the farther along they are, the more help it becomes on personal than business, to be honest.
And I assume you get some of your clients propose that you serve in roles that you're not ready to serve in or don't feel comfortable in, or it's not your sweet spot. I assume that discussion comes up then.
I would say that we do a really good job in our prospect meetings with them of letting them know what we do and how we help. And so I think like the expectations are laid there of like, this is not like we don't file taxes. We are not your full-time CFO, and here's why you'd probably need one. We're not your estate planning attorney, but we'll educate you on the estate planning things that you most likely are going to need to do. I've found that most for most people, it's really that you didn't set the expectations or let them know. And so what we do in our prospect meetings is like, after we get to know them really well, we show them exactly what we do for them. So here's what we do in all of the meetings and onboarding. Here's what the financial plan you get. Here's the software. After that, here's what it looks like on a yearly basis. Here's the review cycles. Here's what we do in each review cycle. Here's where your plan will live beyond that. And I think a lot of advisors don't do that. They just sit down and they just talk about being a financial advisor. And, if you went and surveyed 100 people, they'd be like, I don't even get what a financial advisor does. So like we lay it out there so they can feel exactly what it's like to know if that's what they want or they don't want.
Okay. So where are you located, Thomas?
I am in Indianapolis, but
My ignorance. Okay, that's right. You
Yeah.
said that. Okay.
we're fully virtual though. Like most of our clients are California, Florida, Texas, New York, like most of the big cities.
Okay.
It's good questions though.
Parker had a question.
Yeah, Thomas, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join us.
Sure.
How did you decide on business owners as your niche? Is it something you just kind of fell into? Is it because you were enjoying the challenge? And I'm sure business planning, I don't do a lot of it, but a lot of it's probably like a puzzle, right? So is the challenge aspect of it? I'm sure there's some revenue aspect as well, but like what made you decide on your specific niche?
So I started off with just millennials, because I was like, I don't want to be like every other advisor working with retirees. And also like my parents aren't even retired. I can't relate to that in any way and understand it. But what I could understand is people in my life stage and I know the things that they're going through. And then I started to realize that like, like I'm kind of bored of the planning. Like it's like if you work with 30-year-old dual income household who makes $200,000 a year, pretty basic. Like, and what happens is they fall off in yearly planning fee models because they're like, hey, there's not going to be much to do for the next 3 years. We bought our house, we have our 529 set up, blah, blah, blah. And then I kind of just started to get a couple of business owner clients, and I realized it's just a really good space that not many advisors have nailed down because most advisors still only can do AUM fees, and business owners are not good for AUM fees because a lot of them, they're investing back into their business, a lot of real estate, other different things. And so to me, it was like, this is it's way more challenging. It's a lot deeper that we can go. We also can have significantly more value, and business owners can pay us from their business for, we charge a 0.35% AUM fee on the side, and that's their personal fee, and their business, that's a deductible expense. And, for our clients that are 30, most of them are 37% tax bracket, high state tax states, like that reduces the fee a lot, and they don't feel it as much because it's coming out of their business. So I think it was one, like retention is going to be better for people with lives that are changing a lot, which are business owners. Two, it's not boring. Like every client is vastly different what we're helping with, helping them on. And it just, to me, is a lot of fun, and taxes are the big part. And that's how we can be really unique.
What software are you using for tax? Is it Holistiplan by chance?
Yeah, so we use Holistiplan for modeling, but like Holistiplan won't solve anything for you, right? Like Holistiplan will tell you kind of some basic things, I would say, but like we have to know, like Holistiplan's not going to tell them what they should pay themselves in salary for QBI, or whether they don't qualify for QBI, or all of the things. So we show them the impact of what we do through it. And we absolutely love Holistiplan, but like the taxes, like all has to be knowledge based.
Yeah.
And we have so many spreadsheets that we have, like templates that we've created that we have to use for clients.
Fair enough. Matthew had a good question. You want to jump in and ask?
Hello?
Yep, we got you.
Oh, do you want me to go?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. By the way, I'm a freshman here at the University of Michigan. I guess I thought this call was more for like college more kids, but it's really cool listening to all of you talk because obviously I bet like all of you can answer this question because you're all like really experienced in this stuff. But I guess right now I'm studying for the SIE, like the securities exam. And I guess I was just wondering after this, where should I go from there? Because I'm not exactly sure the route I want to take, but I really enjoy, I guess, wealth management because just like the connection you can build with people. And yeah, I guess I'm really interested in the field, and I haven't really found a field like this. I just think it's really cool so far. So yeah, if you have any insight on that, that'd be great.
Yeah. So really to be like a fee only financial planner, you actually only need your 66. You don't even need to do your SIE or your 7. I mean, correct me if you're wrong, but my hire's literally just doing his 66 right now. Your series 7 is like the hardest one, and it's only to really be able to sell insurance products. I probably wouldn't pay to do my series 7 personally. I would do like the externship that Hannah Moore puts on over the summers. I think you'll learn way more from things like that. Like these tests are like, I don't think you're going to walk away from these tests and be like, I'm better equipped to be a financial planner. It's just kind of the thing that you have to pass. Where like internships, that externship I'm talking about, Cody Garrett has like a good course for advisors that you can learn financial planning from. That's where I would spend my time personally, especially because your series 7 is only for if you're at a broker dealer or somewhere that sells insurances. Like you drop yours as an RIA. And you could study for your CFP, but you need 3 years of work experience for it to actually the letters count. If you wanted to do that, I mean, I don't see a reason why you wouldn't. It's just going to take a lot of time.
Mhm. All right, thank you so much. Yeah, that's great.
For sure, man.
And I second attending the externship over the summer, Matthew, if you're able. They'll go into and explore a lot of these themes in much greater detail. And there's a large group of about 800 or 900 people that take it from all different stages of careers, and it's a great place to explore whether or not this is a good opportunity for you.
And
It's
I don't know.
relatively inexpensive at $300. So
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Is I don't know if they do free for college students, but I know it's $300 for anybody. So like very low for what you'll learn, and you
point.
learn how to use all the softwares that financial planning firms use.
Who's it run by?
Max,
It's by the
Hannah
Financial
Moore.
Planning Association and Hannah Moore. She's great.
I'll put some links in the channel for you.
Yeah, I bought it for my hire to go through too, just for like added learning.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Thanks for being here, Matthew. You're certainly not the only student on the call. Great question. And I can definitely second that. I went and got my Series 7 and 66 during college and thought I was so far ahead. Got into the broker dealer space, started slinging products, realized that wasn't for me. Started my own RIA, dropped all the licenses and just ran with the CFP. So fortunately, I did have the 3 years of work experience. And actually, you only need 2 years of work experience if you work underneath a CFP. But to Thomas's point, getting the 66 might be the only thing you need at an RIA. If that's where you can go and learn your skills, that would be great. If you have to start at a broker dealer, then potentially might need that 7 or some other licenses. And also have to give a big plug here. Thank you, Stephanie, for the Student Success Summit. Any students on the call, we have a really, really cool program in February designed for students, by students. We have a bunch of great speakers coming in, and it's all free for students. So, and your boy here is speaking at it. So, you got to come in and support. Awesome. Let's see. What other questions do we have here? Chris, do you want to chime in with your question?
Yeah, sure. What's up, Thomas? How are you doing?
Good.
Good, man. Hey, was wondering on the business owner side of things, do you focus on any specific business industry? Or are you trying to niche down, or is it basically any industry I'll work with?
Pretty much any industry that is not like, we typically want to work with like manufacturing or like heavy, I would say like tons of trucks. And I mean, we have like a pool company, I guess, that we work with that they also own a marketing agency. The core financial planning is very similar, to be honest. Like the nuances are going to be in like depreciation and things like that, which we actually have that knowledge in house. But either way, that's going to be stamped by a CPA where we would still be able to do it. So we have a lot of service businesses, but like my largest client owns a Fortune 100 consulting firm that does like, it's like $80 million valuation at this point. And so we have like nuances everywhere because the core financial planning stuff still exists, and the tax planning. And how that handles their personal finance, all that. So we haven't, and I don't think we will. Like, I don't really want to, like, I see the advisors are like, I work with Eli Lilly employees, and I'm like, I would be so bored. Like, I can learn the benefits anywhere pretty quickly. There isn't that many nuances of things that, like, I like the nuance of different clients.
Cool. Love it.
Andrew asked if you're serving any clients out of the United States or any businesses.
No, thankfully, no. I would partner, like, I partner with a family office on some like pretty complex clients. I would partner with them if that was a situation of somebody I really wanted to work with. But like, we have some clients who like are not like full-time US citizens, and that we have to do like, plan for exit taxes going back to India and things like that, which once you kind of learn that once, it's really not that bad. It's just how they see retirement accounts and how their exit tax works.
Yeah.
But that's pretty much it.
My niche I'm planning on is to advise cross border folks. So that's my incentive for asking the question.
No, it makes sense. And honestly, you should focus on tech, because all of the people that are here just because they have some job, and if they don't work there for 2 weeks, they technically have to leave the country, and they make a lot of money.
Rachel, great question. Do you want to ask?
Yeah. Hey, Thomas. I was just curious how you kind of balance client-facing work and prep work and the social media planning. So, is there a certain way you structure your weeks, whether it's time blocking or Friday is prep for the next week, or do you schedule it all out for the next month?
Yeah.
How's that look?
So I schedule super far out. Like, my next Twitter post is like April of next year in my scheduling tool. Like, what I do is I find like, one, I repurpose a lot of content because I think people don't do this right. But it's like, I look back, in last January, I had 800 followers on Twitter, and now I have 20,000, right? So like, if I'm not repurposing my content that does really well, like this week I reposted with a different hook on a thread of, best tax planning moves for business owners. And the first time it had 600,000 views. And this time it still had 200,000 views. And so like, you can recraft things. And like, I mean, think about this. So like, let's say, advisors always tell me like, hey, how am I supposed to come up with enough content to still be posting in like a year? And so I'm like, okay, well, think of every topic in finance, right? Let's say you start with cash. You could probably tell me 20 different things that you could talk to somebody about cash management, budgeting, reverse budgeting, high yield savings accounts, different accounts, whatever, right? Every single one of those points you could talk about in 5 different ways, right? Like, if we say reverse budgeting, you could talk about why reverse budgeting is more like people are more successful with it. You could use an example about reverse budgeting. You could talk about reverse budgeting and what parts you can automate. You could just talk, you could talk about the comparison between the two and how it's less time consuming. Like, the thing is, like, you should probably never run out of content, because you can re-say the same points in different ways over and over and over. And this is where people tell me like, well, what if somebody remembers that I posted this 5 months ago? And at the end of the day, if somebody remembers something you posted 5 months ago, like, you won, right? Like, we see hundreds of thousands of things a week, right? Like, if they remember anything you did, that means it was really good. And like, how many life lessons or facts do you need to be told before you remember something and actually implement it? A lot. So yes, I schedule a ton. And like, what I do is, everything for me on Twitter is like my main focus. And then LinkedIn is just everything that did well on Twitter. And so what I'll do is I'll go back and look at the last couple months, and like, all my top posts is what I schedule out to be on LinkedIn. And then I write a blog post a week. I typically am a couple weeks ahead of time, but I basically spend like an hour on Monday writing that blog post, and I'll do like maybe one quick edit, but I don't spend much time on it. I do a podcast every Monday and quickly edit it and get it out Friday. And like, I probably spend like 5 hours a week on social media total, which is a decent amount, I would say, but nothing like crazy for, I think, how much I put out. So like, I do no client meetings Monday. I do just social media, my podcast, and all client planning work. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, all morning, I do client planning work. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, all afternoon from 12 to 5, I do 15 client meetings. And then Friday, I do morning client work. And if I have any social media or whatever, I do. And then I do like 2 or 3 meetings Friday. So I typically have like 15 to 18 client meetings a week. And then the rest of the time is client planning work and a little bit of social media when I find the time. But also, what I do is, like, for my blog, I like have blog post ideas that are going to take me some time, that when I have weeks with more time, I write. And then I have blog post ideas that are like, I only have 20 minutes. I could write this in 20 minutes. Or I have like old newsletters that I could repurpose as a blog post that never got put out there. Or I have like threads I wrote that I could put out as a blog post. And so it's like mixing in based on the time I have, but I just don't give myself the ability to not do it. Like there isn't a this week is off. Like I just built the habit early on that like I'm going to do this every single week, and there's just no choice.
Dude, you're an absolute animal, and I feel like I can understand that everyone can understand. So I am going to break this down one little baby step at a time. So here's a list of the social media platforms that I'm aware of and ways to get content or clients, etc. Twitter feels like you're number one. Is that fair to start out, Thomas?
For sure. And I will say that's where 98% of my prospects come from.
Okay.
So it should be my main focus.
So 98% of prospects coming from here.
Mm-hmm.
So much harder to spell when everyone's watching you.
For sure.
But talk to us then as another note here. How are we creating the content? How are we generating it? And then it sounds like it kind of drips into LinkedIn. So it's like it all originates in here. We have things scheduled out for infinity and beyond. And then we're able to use that as kind of the starting thing. So maybe I'll even like another space because it's really Twitter and then everything else.
Yeah. So I basically schedule 3 posts a day on Twitter every day. But then like most of the time I finish a meeting and I'm like, oh, I have a great post idea. And so I just go post that there. So then like the next time I go schedule, I have all of my old content that I've already posted and repurposed, plus with new content that mixes in. So like if before I had a year's worth of content, because I had a couple new posts a day, now I have like a year and a half, and then it becomes like 2 years and it becomes like 2.5 years. So like eventually I could literally never post anything new and never recycle anything for well over a year and it'd be fine. But that's basically what I do. So I probably end up with like 6 to 8 posts a day, which sounds like a lot to everybody. But like the more that you get into this, like in the beginning, 1 post a day for me was so hard. It was like literally impossible. But I think it becomes like a skill or like something that you realize like, oh, that's a really good thing to post about. And then also the more you know about financial planning, I think the easier this becomes as well, too, right? Like the deeper you go and the things you talk about with clients, the more things there are just to talk about. So then I take that and then I'll basically go look at the last month of Twitter and say, what were my best 2 to 3 posts a day?
Wait, Thomas, you're going way too fast for how slow I am. Okay. We got to break this down one more time. So I'm with you. We got the 3 posts a day. Some are manual, some are scheduled. I get the manual part. I sometimes get out of a meeting and then I just put the phone right in my face and crank out a TikTok or a video or whatever. So I'm right with you there. How are we scheduling them and how are we getting all the way that far out? Is that a tool internally with Twitter or is there?
I use Hype Fury. Hype Fury is a great scheduling tool. I think probably like 100 advisors I've got to use it now. I think it's really great. Like I can just like type it in and it auto puts it like the next available time. So I don't have to worry about like in Twitter, you'd have to be like, oh wait, my last one was January 18th at 8. So I need to remember the next one's January 18th at noon. And then you go type the next post. And you're like, what was the last date I did? Like, I don't remember. And so it's just a horrible waste of time.
Gotcha. So you're just cranking them out, like kind of more the maybe plain vanilla ones, like, budgeting stuff, whatever the case is in Hype Fury. And then you got the manual ones on top. Does that kind of summarize the content engine on the first round?
Somewhat. Like I also do have a podcast that comes out Friday. So I put a video about the podcast. I have a YouTube Tuesday and Thursday. I put videos out on those.
Okay.
And I put a new thread every single Monday or every single Wednesday. And I put an old thread every Monday. So like there's a lot.
Okay. And is that all via Twitter? Or, I mean,
Yep.
obviously you have to chop it up if it's coming from the podcast, but you're able to schedule that.
Yep.
Nice. Does Hype Fury link to anything else or is X basically the...
It does. I just only use it for Twitter.
Okay.
You can use it for LinkedIn as well, but it's like $20 for Twitter, like 50 for LinkedIn. And LinkedIn's scheduling tool, because I post less and you can always like, I haven't had any issues with it. So I just do it. Like if you were going to post the same thing for sure to Twitter and LinkedIn and Instagram and wherever, you could then just do it all through Hype Fury and it would push them all out.
Gotcha. But you kind of change it up a little bit, maybe tagging different people or hashtags that maybe wouldn't apply to specific platforms.
Yeah, I don't use any hashtags, but I think on Twitter you can post way more um, than LinkedIn. So like I use Twitter for like every thought I have that's a post, and then that was good. I'll use that on LinkedIn. That's more polished, and you have less posts and things show up for longer.
Beautiful. Okay. Anyone else have a question that we want to talk about with what we just went over Twitter, or are we able to move on? Am I going?
You
Really,
said how many hours a week do I work? I would say a decent amount right now, just because it's on me because we are bringing on 5 clients a month right now. And so before when I was bringing on 2 or 3, but the thing is we were getting so many prospects and I don't want to tell people 5 or 6 month wait list. Like our next onboarding date is the 3rd week of January right now. And eventually it becomes too long where you have people, you get pushed down. But I do have a full-time hire, a CFP that does 20 hours a month and an assistant. So like we all kind of work together to get things done. And I would not be able to, I hired my full-time hire and 2 months ago. And without him, things would be horrible right now. But I still probably work like 50 or so hours right now. But I also have all my client fall reviews. Like after this year to me was all about building as much revenue as we possibly could. I think next year I won't take on as many clients a month and I'll probably just raise fees and only take on like higher fee clients. I think, I don't want to work this much that long, but I also don't have kids yet. So I'm kind of like, hey, if I have kids in 4 years, like if I have to take on like 5 clients a year that are $25,000 a year, I would like to have the ability to do it because I built such a good business by that time.
It's starting to make sense why you serve business owners. Okay, moving on. So, or I guess anyone else have any questions? Hopefully I'm
Parker did.
breaking it down.
I had a quick follow-up.
Yep.
How many folks do you have that you work with outside of your team, like that are, what we might call centers of influence or something like that? I mean, like how many I assume you have folks with, again, that are not your direct employee, but certainly part of your advising team, so to
So
speak. So
I would say like I always have a bunch of people that my clients can use based on who they are. Like
right.
I have probably like a bunch of estate planning attorneys who are like, hey, you are very wealthy. You might be willing to pay $40,000 to $50,000 for estate planning because things are really complex and we need irrevocable trust, etc. They charge $1,000 hours, very different than, hey, I am 30 and I need a revocable trust set up in California and that should be $5,000, right? We have CPAs for business owners, for people that are going to be C corps versus, S corps versus partnerships. We have people that are just for employees. We have people that are rental properties. So we have I think a thing that's not talked about enough is having a good brand and a lot of followers. Is it opens doors of like connections to other really good professionals. And like we always tell our clients, like, you don't have to find any professionals. Like we have the insurance brokers, we have the estate planning attorneys, we have the CPAs. Like we'll just funnel you to the right people, and you don't have to waste your time trying to find and have a bad CPA and then another bad CPA and then et cetera.
How do you vet them in terms of knowing, who's the right fit for the right clients? I mean, how do you build those relationships to know that?
Well, we first vet all of our
Obviously,
clients
over time you're gonna know, but how do you start that process? So
yeah, I think we always vet all of our clients' existing professionals. Like we'll sit down with them and we'll like talk things and be like, well, first of all, like you're a client, you're an S corp, and you have a 0 salary, like CPA is fired, right? Like that's just a
right.
no-brainer. And then there's other times where we'll sit there and we'll be like talking about strategies we're thinking, and if they're like, "What? I haven't heard of that," like etc., you're like, okay, like if you don't know how to plan around QBI and you're going to be the CPA for a business owner, like that just can't exist, right? Because that's like the best tax deduction that exists for them, that and entity structures. So I think like sometimes it's just talking to them and asking them questions. I think like maybe a lot of people here in the XY group, like I'm not a big person of like, I'm going to go to the XY group and be like, X person said this person's trusted, because they might have 3 clients. You might be getting advice from somebody in there that has 3 clients, that's their friend, and they don't know anything about it. So like I really only use other advisors that I know really know their stuff and have really good professionals. And then I try to vet them through a conversation of like, here's my client situation, here's what we're thinking, you know, here's, what would you think? And if they don't really have good answers or good ideas, or they haven't heard of the things, I'm
things that you're not, maybe don't enjoy as much, I should say.
Yeah, I love that. That's what I talk about pretty much all the time is like my goal here is that I'm building the exact job I want, right? And the exact job I want is the combination of what I like and what I'm uniquely good at. And so I think the things are like I'm very good at social media and driving clients, where I think I'm like an A plus there. And then I think I'm like an A plus in client meetings, explaining things, talking to them. Financial planning wise, I definitely think I'm good, but I think that's a way easier skill to learn than the other ones. There's a reason why most advisors fail, and it's because they can't get clients. And so what I'm doing is like my new hire, we do every single financial plan together. He's only been working with me for 2 months now. I'd say he's 70% of the way there on being able to do all the financial plans on his own. And if we take on 5 new clients a month, like in his first 4 months working with us, he'll end up with over 20 financial plans plus all of our client reviews, which we review all their estate planning, all their insurance, all their end of year tax planning. That's more reps than most advisors get in like their first 5 years of being an RIA. And so I was talking to James Canole. I'm sure a lot of people know him. He's a great advisor. He's all over YouTube. He's growing a great firm. And he's like, if you can train advisors to be up to speed really quick, like that's the thing almost nobody can do. And so like my thing is that I'll just bring people on and give them tons and tons and tons and tons of reps at it and just working with us on it. So I like every financial plan I work on, he's there with me. And then I have him take the financial plan and create it into the deliverable. So he has to rewrite everything out and learn the things we're talking about, the language I use, et cetera. So I don't want to do organizational stuff. I don't want to email clients, whatever, so I have an assistant. I don't really want to be creating the spreadsheets and in the analysis there. So I have a CFP and my other full-time hire. And for now, that's going to be my team. I don't want to do YouTube, so I have that. I'm hiring somebody who will do podcast and video editing and all that. I am just waiting to see if I want to grow the firm with more people and more advisors. And if I did, I would hire advisors who just want to be advisors and not growers of the business. Because I get a lot of people who are good on social media wanting to join All Street, but I don't see a value add in bringing somebody else on, because then it's like you get 30%, I get 70. Like, I don't like that. I would rather say I can give you every client you're going to need, and here's your salary, and we'll grow that per year. But I'm still being compensated for being able to drive those people in, because otherwise I can just get revenue shares with other firms. Like I have like revenue shares with some bigger firms when like, hey, I sent them a client who they're $80 million. They have cross-border issues. They're older. They're not somebody I want to work with. And I can just get 20% of their revenue forever. So I'd rather do that than bring somebody and train them just to get a certain percentage and they just be under the All Street belt. But that's for now. In 5 years, I might want to grow a big firm. I don't know. So I just am like, no matter what, my team has to be done and my clients have to be serviced well before I would ever make those moves. But I think naturally, maybe we'll hire somebody to work with retirees, because we have all of our clients' parents that are untapped, and like all my parents' friends and everybody. And I do get a lot of prospects who are like, we're retirees, we'd like to work with you. And I just say no. So that could be a natural fit someday.
Awesome. Thank you.
Probably a great place to end it. Thomas, no surprise that you're working with business owners. You're absolutely crushing it as a business owner yourself. And we can't thank you enough for coming on here, inspiring us. I know I'm fired up to get back on social media. Definitely gave us all some new tricks and tips to think about. So thank you so much, man, for joining us today.
Well, last closing thought is follow me on social media, follow Rachel Camp, follow Jacob Turner, like Colin. Like there's some people who are really good. Like I see a lot of advisors, their social is so bad, and all they would have to do is say, here's my content. How does everybody else's look? Like a very easy low hanging fruit is like, stop writing these huge long paragraphs with no spacing, with hashtags. Like you have to grab people's attention, have a good hook, and have it look visually appealing. Just go look at other people who are doing it well and copy the frameworks that they have. Like don't copy their words and what they say, but make it look similar. Because I don't think you'll find anybody with a big audience that writes a 7-sentence paragraph and thinks people are going to read them, or has like 20 hashtags at the bottom, or it's pretty easy. Just look at other people who are doing it well and use that as inspiration.
Another great tip. Thank you so much again, Thomas.
For sure.